Happiness is what we're all looking for. That's not a motivational opener, it's just true. Everything we do in some way traces back to it. And we've tried a lot of things to get there. We've tried changing our habits, changing our mindset, or even following the 10 things happy people do every morning. And sometimes they help for a while, but the unhappiness tends to come back. So here is what I've seen is actually going on. The main reason we're unhappy is not the absence of good things in our lives, or the constant effort to get what we want, or just anxiety. It's the constant effort to avoid the things we don't like. The things we try to avoid, like the small daily discomforts, the difficult conversations, the stagnant situations that we avoid handling, those are doing far more damage to our happiness than most of us realize. And the counterintuitive part is that the harder we work to avoid these discomforts, the worse it gets. That's what this video is about. Not how to want less, not how to rewire our mindset, not a go-with-the-flow narrative, but why avoidance is the real problem, what it's doing to us right now in ordinary life, and why it's costing us more than we realize. If you strip life down, everything in it falls in two categories: the things you want and the things you don't want. Things you move forward and things you try to move away from. That's pretty much the whole story of our life. Now here's where it gets interesting. Psychology tells us that the second category, the things we dislike and we try to avoid, shapes our experience far more than the first one does. And there's a name for it. It's called the brain negativity bias. The brain gives more weight to the negative than the positive. One criticism feels harder than 3 compliments. A bad interaction stays with you longer than a good one. Losses feel heavier than equivalent gains. That's not a flaw, it's evolution. Missing pleasure rarely killed our ancestors, but missing danger did. So the brain got very good at spotting threats and treating discomfort as urgent. Which means that for most of us, what we're trying to avoid takes far more space in our heads than what we actually want. Think about an ordinary day. Nothing special. What occupies your mind more? What you want or what you'd rather not deal with? Like the conversation you've been putting off, the errand that annoys you, the pressure you'd rather not run into, the traffic. That second list tends to win, right? So we've established something. Our brains are mostly preoccupied with what we're trying to avoid. Fine. But here is the question that actually matters. What does that do to us over time? When avoidance becomes the main mode, life starts organizing itself around it. The question running in the background stops being what do I want and becomes what do I need to avoid. While these two questions feel similar, they lead to very different places. Here is a simple example. Someone is unhappy in their job. They feel stuck, undervalued, going nowhere. If the mind is mostly in avoidance mode, the pattern tends to go like this. They complain, but they stay. Because leaving means uncertainty, interviews, maybe rejection, the discomfort establishing themselves in a new job. And the mind, focused on what they want to avoid, keeps choosing the familiar discomfort over the unfamiliar possibility. Years pass and nothing changes. But when the question of them becomes, what do I actually want? And the answer is that they want a better environment, more meaningful work, a sense of going somewhere, then a desire with a specific direction is born. And this desire produces action, and they just start moving towards that direction. Same situation, different question, different outcome. Now here's where it gets a little bit uncomfortable because this goes deeper than jobs. A lot of what we think we're pursuing is actually avoidance wearing a different face. Think about it. Maybe you pursue success not because success excites you, but because failure feels unbearable. Maybe you seek approval not because admiration matters that much, but because rejection feels painful. Maybe you stay constantly busy not because you love activity, but because you cannot stay in silence dealing with your thoughts and emotions. From the outside it looks like a drive, but internally you're just running away. I'm not saying this to judge it. Most of us do this somewhere in our lives. But it's worth seeing because when avoidance is what's actually driving you, it determines when you end up. And that destination tends to be exhausting and unfulfilling even when it looks like success from the outside. But there is something even more interesting and more unsettling that happens when avoidance becomes a long-term habit. The world starts to feel smaller, but the world has not changed. What changed is the range of experience the mind is willing to enter. We start believing certain things are not for us, or that our situation probably cannot change. What has really happened is that the mind has drawn a perimeter around what feels safe and started treating that perimeter as reality. The strange thing is that it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like being sensible. I'm just being realistic. That's not really my thing. Now it's not the right time. Neuroscience explains what's happening. The brain wires based on what we repeatedly do. Every time we avoid something uncomfortable, the brain registers it as a successful strategy and reinforces that pathway. Meanwhile, the pathway is linked to curiosity, to trying something new, to stepping into the unknown. Those get used less, so they get weaker. At some point, the brain stopped distinguishing between danger and discomfort, between risk and growth, between something that would actually hurt you and something that's just unfamiliar. A flexible mind can hold without retreating uncomfortable internal states like doubt, embarrassment, uncertainty, not knowing how something will turn out. A mind built around avoidance cannot, so it adds conditions before acting. I'll do it when I feel more confident. I will try when I'm more sure it will work. But confidence comes from doing things before you feel ready. You cannot get comfortable with uncertainty by avoiding it. Growth has always meant going somewhere before you feel prepared for it. So the world has not become smaller. The mind's idea of what's safe has. That's why morning affirmations and 10-step happiness plans have a short-term effect, if any effect at all, that tend to be about as deep as the advice. What actually touches the root is something simpler: mental flexibility. The ability to hold discomfort without immediately escaping it. And this is the part that feels discouraging at first. Because if the brain has been automatically reinforcing this for years, what do you do with that? You can just decide your way out of a pattern the brain built through repetition. But that's also exactly the clue. The brain did not build this through one big moment. It built it through small and repeated experiences that kept confirming the same rule. Which means that it also updates the same way. Mental flexibility comes back through small, repeated encounters with what you've been sidestepping. Each time you stay present with something uncomfortable instead of reaching for a distraction, the mind updates its model. It learns that it can be here, in this, and can be okay. Confidence and a sense of direction return. The perimeter gets wider. So before trying another quick fix habit, it might be worth sitting with a simpler question. How much of your energy is going toward what you're trying to avoid? And is that actually protecting you? Or it has just become a habit of staying safe? That question, honestly looked at, can open up a lot. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Until next time, keep looking beyond the obvious. If something here opened a new perspective for you, share it. Or share a moment from your own life that connects to it. Someone else might recognize themselves in your story. A like tells YouTube to bring more of these conversations your way, and subscribing means you'll be here for the next one. Tell us what landed and what didn't. Your feedback shapes where we go next. This space is for mind workers, curious people who reflect, who notice, and who look for more honest ways to move through life. If that's you, welcome in.